The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise today with a lot of hope that these hearings will serve as a big first step towards eventually passing a comprehensive climate bill through our committee so that it can continue on to the House and Senate floors and eventually make it to the President's desk for his signature. I applaud your decision to use regular order, and I hope that the members of this committee on both sides of the dais will use this opportunity to offer constructive ideas so that the eventual law is reflective of the combined efforts of the entire committee. After all, climate change is not a problem that will only affect Democrats or Republicans. It will affect each and every one of us, as well as our children and our grandchildren. As I've said in the past, the draft that you and Chairman Markey released on March 31st was a good starting point from which this committee can begin to craft our answer to the question of climate change. However, I would also like to say that this bill is just that, a starting point. As everyone in this room knows, many of the key questions that will define this bill's workability have yet to be answered, and I, for one, look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, to fill in these blanks. These are questions such as, where are credits allocated? What are the appropriate time frames and reduction goals? How will we minimize the cost imposed on our constituents? And how will we encourage and deploy next-generation clean energy technologies? These are not simple questions with simple answers. They're very complex and challenging issues, one that will require a careful look as to where we are today, where we want to be tomorrow, and most importantly, how are we going to get there? As I said many times, the threat of climate change is really a question of two things, technology and transition. What technologies can we bring about through innovation, research, and deployment that will ensure that America has the energy it needs to power our country for generations in the future, while at the same time reducing and eliminating the carbon footprint resulting from the way we power ourselves today? What are the appropriate transition steps that need to be made, not only to encourage these technological advances, but to ensure that we preserve current jobs while creating new green jobs? And what transition steps need to be taken to ensure we don't greatly increase our constituents' power bills? This bill gives us a bit of a framework picture as to how we are going to answer those questions, but much work will need to be done to fill in these blanks if we're going to adequately address climate change. Like most Democrats on this committee, I hope that we can all work together to answer these questions so that we can bring about a bill that we can all eventually support. Unlike some of my friends on the other side of the aisle, I have long ago taken the position that it isn't enough to just say no. We must be able to find a way for all of us to say yes. And I'm committed, as I have been all along, to working to help us get to that place. I must admit I have a lot of concerns with the renewable electric standard as it's currently written. I think a better standard would be like the one we already passed through the House in last Congress. That is a standard that is workable and one that will not penalize many of our constituents simply because of where they live. Any new renewable standard must do more than this bill currently does to recognize that different regions have different resources available to them, and I look forward to discussions on this matter. Furthermore, we need to do more to encourage CCS deployment. Without widespread deployment of this technology, all other reductions in this bill won't matter. This fact needs to be reflected more in the bill, and we need to ensure the framework and funding for these technologies is certain. Similarly, the transmission piece of this bill is quite inadequate in my opinion, and I'd like to see some more work done there also. I would also like to see the provisions that Jay Inslee and I worked on regarding emissions and job leakage tightened. These are a few examples of places where I think the bill needs some improvement. It's a good starting point, and I, for one, am ready to work with our chairman to refine and improve the starting text. I personally appreciate our chairman's efforts to this point, especially in areas such as including the Doyle-Inslee Employ Act provisions as well as the Boucher CCS bill. It will be critical for us to concentrate on transitional and technological issues as we move forward with our attempt to fundamentally alter how we produce and use power in this country for the first time since the Industrial Revolution. Mr. Chairman, I believe if done right, this bill will serve as an engine to transform our economy to ensure that America is the world's leading manufacturer and exporter of clean fuel technologies, The jobs that can be created by this transformation are needed in every region of this country, and it's critical that members from all regions of our country work together to create them. I, for one, am ready to do my part, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
We thank the gentleman.